You may or may not be. You can answer by raising your hand. It's kind of sweet because we have this intimate class today, so you can raise your hand or you can put something in the chat, however feels best to you. So, hi, Mark and Melissa and Laurel, who I know is studying with the lovely Jacqueline right now, and Jax. Hi, Shelly. And oh my gosh, can I pronounce this? Ekaterina. Ekaterina. It's like music. Nicole and Anna and Bridget, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm going to invite you to begin by closing your eyes. And as storytellers, we are looking out into the world. We're that being that looks past that first dimension, looks past the illusion, past the glamour, past the show, past the front stage, back to the backstage, to the origin. We're these extraordinary multidimensional seers, and that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So I want to begin by inviting you to close those eyes and all that focus that's on the outer world. So you can come all the way inward and come to the story that's living inside you. I'm just going to begin with a little song. And as I sing this, I'm going to invite you to really pay attention to what is the story that's living inside you. I, oh, I, oh, Ayo, 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 ayo. And as I sing, I'm going to invite you to start paying attention to what are the parts of the earth that come alive in you. Are there rivers? Are there trees? Is there desert? What is the part of this earth that comes alive in you? Ayo, ayo, ay, ayo, ay. And what is the part of you that you know that you are in service to? So what part of your soul, what are you in service to? And I ask this in a very real way, and not with your thinking mind. Like, place your hand on your heart. What comes alive when I ask that question? Not with your brain, but with your heart. What are you in service to? And your last and final question, it's a radical one. It's a really radical one. And I'm going to ask you, whatever you do, don't think about it. Just trust your intuition, okay? So we're going to play this magical game. I'm going to ask the question because the answer is living inside you. And something inside you is going to answer, and it's going to answer through a symbol, okay? So if your eyes are open, I really recommend you close your eyes, that you come into this intelligence that's living in your gut, right? There's brain cells in our gut, and there's this other form of great intelligence that many of us aren't given the school to let the gut brain cells express themselves, right? So I'm going to ask you to bring your hands down to your gut. For women, some of us are being like, oh God, my stomach, all the stories that the world has put on top of us. And can you come into this moment and just love this part of your body that is kind of being driven out of the human experience, this listening to our core, listening to our gut. So can you love on this place? Can you invite its voice to speak in the language that it knows best, the original human language of symbol? And here is your question, and it's going to answer you in symbol. What is the story your soul has come here to tell? What is the story your soul has come here to tell? And the answer's in a symbol. Okay? You don't have to understand the symbol. The less you understand, the greater the expression, because you're being humble with your mind. Here's another version of this question. What is the story your soul came here to heal? What is the story your soul came here to heal? Now I invite you to open your eyes, and in our chat box, let's see who's in the room. Let's see what arrived in this space. I'm going to close the window because our neighbors, as you may or may not be hearing, are having some construction going on that just started. So I'm going to close that door while you write in the chat box. Okay. And hi, Shelley. Oh my gosh, I saw a lion too. What a trip. Can you tell us which question you're answering? If it's the story that your soul came to heal or the story your soul came to tell? The first one. That's such a trip, Shelley. I saw the same thing. What does that say about us? I can't wait to find out. Moshe's saying something resembling a yin and yang. Tell us again what question you're answering. The story that your soul came to tell or the story your soul came to heal? Lissa's saying turtle with a heart on its back. Beth came with a story to heal a wave extinguishing a flame. Oh, I want to hear what that means to you. Melissa's answering okay. So turtle with a here it says the story to heal is the turtle with a heart on its back. Jack says a shooting star. Magic. Laurel came in with a lynx and a xylophone. I love that. A lynx is a story that she came to tell, and a xylophone story to hear. I'm so fascinated by the cats, by the pattern of cats that are in our space today. Okay, Nicole or Nicole, please forgive my pronunciation. She found a spiral in both of those stories, both those questions. And Lisa is coming to tell the story of chalice and trees flowing out. Mark is the infinity symbol arose. Ekaterina, I just like saying that. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but it's really fabulous. Kind of. You can tell me the right way to say it.
It's Ekaterina.
Ekaterina, okay. The story I came to tell, a dove flying. The story of my soul came to heal. Tarot card 3 of Swords. Do you know what that means?
It's like a broken heart kind of symbol. The full meaning escapes me right now, but I've received it before in readings. So it's definitely like pain in the heart, betrayal, I believe, is associated with it.
Beautiful. I had that. I feel like this, like the weird kid in school. I have that image too. For my second one, I saw a big heart that was with a big rift in it. Melissa saying to heal a bird with a broken wing. And Diana saying a big tree. Interesting, more patterns around trees, like an oak tree, a story that came to heal. We are not alone and more powerful than we know, but unlimited. Laurel saying can share on 3. Oh, okay, great, feel free to. And Shelley is to heal the pile of deadwood entangled. Okay, who's living in a bit of mystery right now? Like what just happened there? Are you not, we did something. We evoked the first language of the human kind, the language that every single, original tribe, indigenous community, all humans that we understand, all started off with this one language. language of symbols. And it's a language that many of us don't get to speak very often. And I would go say that the language of symbol is very closely related to the language of metaphor. What is metaphor? But it is the language of spirit. When we come back to what our stories are, we're just going to go straight into it. We're just going to dive right into this class. I didn't even tell you who I was, but let's do that at the end, because here we are, and it's so fun. We're like right in the middle of a story, and it's your guy's story that's weaving it. But I will say that what we're going to be doing is doing a little bit of introduction into the world of storytelling as a sacred tool and as a tool for healing both the individual and the collective. And then at the end, I guess I'm going to tell you a little bit more about who I am, because you guys are so willing to jump in. And then I'll also tell you a little bit about the School for Sacred Storytelling. But let's come into this piece, because here we are, right? We're talking about language, but like, what is the container for our language, right? What is our container for the language? And let's say that it's story. And so what is a story? Let us all ask this question. Welcome, Brianna and Moshe. What is a story? I know you guys aren't quiet because okay, you guys are being very quiet. Well, I'll just dive in. So a story, I mean, gosh, a story could be so many things. It could be, I'm gonna go so pedantic with you. Okay, there we go. It's a sharing of an experience, is Diana, right? But it's not just any experience, right? A story isn't going to be just the facts and information. There's going to be something more in that, right? And it's going to take us on a journey, which is Moshe's getting to. There's going to be a beginning, middle, and end with a character and a message. Okay, so there's going to be now we're saying that it does something, that it carries a message. That's my other question that's going to be that's beaming in for you today is like, what does this story do? What do they do? Let's say on this one question, what is a story? So we get that it does something. We get that it's part of it's a journey. I'm gonna just get really that it creates transformation within. Oh, Melissa, that's such a bold thing. That's a bold statement. And okay, so it creates transformation. I don't even know exactly how to relate to that, but I appreciate what you're saying is that there's something transformation. There's something that transforms and changes within it. Okay. And what I would say is how big can we expand into our expression of storytelling, right? Because many of us, I'm assuming in the room, are used to Western form of storytelling, beginning, middle, and end, and it all makes sense, right? I was reading this book of indigenous stories from the Laguna tradition, and they don't make sense, and they aren't happy endings, and they're very disturbing. And it like rattled me from the inside out, because I'm so used to the stories that do something, like I'm used to in my Western language of story, that diet that I've been fed, it's all going to make sense at the end. And it was so destructive to my whole brain system because I couldn't run on the normal patterns that I run with stories. And then I realized what was wrong was that their story system had an ingredient that the story system that I was used to didn't. Their story actually had mystery living inside it. So the people who get to be raised with those stories inherently have mystery as part of the ingredients that go into their great buffet of library of story, right? So that when mystery comes, it's understood, seen, and recognized as being a character in a story. Whereas for me, I was like, whoa, how do I get my feet on the ground? There's something in here that I don't know how to be with, And I think that's a great example to look at. Okay, so what is a story? I'm going to go into this very kind of boring, pedantic expression of it, using the language that humans often do, which they usually express themselves through the latest technology. So I'm going to say, okay, we're speaking through computers. I'm going to say that a story is an operating system, that it has a way of sharing beliefs, values, and what we believe is possible. as an operating system, if we look at it through that paradigm, right? Now let's go to a different paradigm. Boop. I'm going to look at the story from this lens. From this lens, I look at the story and I say, if we put the story in the center and we all look at it from a different spoke on the wheel, if I look at it outside of this mechanical expression, I go over to this humanistic expression. I say, oh, a story is a library of the soul. It's a library of the soul. But it reveals the consciousness of the person that's telling, or the people that the storyteller is telling it to. That means that to truly understand a story that was written a long time ago, you have to be part archaeologist, part historian, part wonderment, and a little bit of a mystical, deep listening to what's not being said in between. Time traveler. I got to speak to the fellow who wrote, David, who wrote The King's Speech, and he introduced himself to me as, I'm a time traveler. I went back in time to write that script. I love that. So as we listen for what is a story, we understand that it reflects what's in our consciousness at the time. Now we start looking at, okay, what are these stories? What are they doing? I'm going to ask you that. What do stories do? Caroline's saying they bring meaning, healing, teaching from experience. Great. Listen, Diana, I really like that it brings transformation. And here's where I get a little, I want to be curious with you about your relationship with story and the people that you're telling to. Because to me, the reason why I take a pause and I step back, where I say, story does transformation. I say, well, transformation's a really big job. I mean, if any of you have gone through transformation, I always think, one of my favorite stories is of the butterfly. And it's of he's a New York butterfly, and he was walking around with him and his creeps, and they could eat anything, they could have sex with anything, they did whatever they want, whenever they wanted. And then all of a sudden, he got this desire to go inward. He just wanted to go be by himself, and he built up this little wall around himself, and then he built up this wall, and it was really much nicer and quieter. He lost his appetite, he didn't want to eat anymore, he started meditating. The next thing you know, he couldn't tell his ass from his mouth. It was the great dissolve. He didn't know himself anymore. It was all gone. It was very strange. It was so strange he couldn't even think about it anymore. And then one day, everything was really different. And he felt this impulse, this knocking from inside of him. But this time, he wasn't blind to what that knock from inside meant. He knew exactly what it meant. And this time, he was a little scared. But he also knew that there was no other choice. So this time it required courage to follow the knock. And so he broke through the only thing that was protecting him, that was between him and the rest of the world. And he broke through. And when he came out, he had these big wings. And he was like, whoa, this big, gust of wind took him and threw him into the air. And now he's trying to figure out how to use his wings. You're getting a sense of the story. Anyway, I say all that because transformation, I think, is a really big job. And it's like, I live in California. It's really glorified. We love this language, transformation, this. Why do you think our land is burning? I'm going to go back to this idea of that. The original teaching was that the earth was sung, spoken, and chanted into existence. That as humans, we speak the earth out loud. Right. And so I'm in this place, right, where we are transformation. I can't stop saying it. And then we get shocked when the land starts to transform around us. It's sort of like, hey, are we all connected or are we not? And maybe it's not my obsession with transformation. Maybe it's the earth's obsession with transformation speaking through me. This is why I'm speaking on this part of the land, and here it changes. So what I'm inviting you into now is an animistic perspective, okay? This is an old way of seeing the life that lives in all things and our connection to all of life. So thanks for going on that journey down the world of transformation, and how do we think about, so when I think about, does my story have the capacity for creating a place for people to have a transformational experience? Perhaps. Gosh, I hope so. But would I, as storyteller, as guide, make the assumption that I am going to transform someone's life by telling a story? Oh, heck no. That's a big job to take on transformation. It's really your sovereign choice. I might take you to the door of grief. I might put a big bright spot on the injustices of what's going on in the world. We could do all different kinds of things. I can take you into the room. We could open the doors and the windows and see what's there. That's why I love calling stories as a sanctuary. They're a sanctuary of sorts, the story itself. And what happens inside the temple, right? It's all in the language. Isn't it so great? You can't make this stuff up, right? It's all inside the temple. And what happens there is this beautiful private experience where you get to explore your consciousness without anybody's judgment, without anybody getting in the way of saying that you're right or wrong. And this is what we have the capacity to do as storytellers, to take people deep into the journey of the deepest part of their hearts, their minds, and their souls. So we've got this story, and it has the capacity to do many things. I'm going to go into another expression of what is a story, and I'm gonna look at it from another spoke in the wheel, from a different paradigm perspective, and this way I'm going to call it a vehicle. And let's say that we have agreement that there's a soul. I think every religion has a common agreement that there's a soul that inhabits this body. So we're gonna work on this agreement. Okay, we're gonna play with it, that we're in this story. Okay, and that this body is made up of earth, right? I've got the same amount of water in this body as this earth, same amount of minerals. It's an exact replica in many ways. Okay, so we have this idea that there's a soul that lives in my body, and my body is the vehicle for the soul. Is everyone on page with that? Does that make sense? Okay, so now let's go and expand our way of thinking about story. And what if story was the vehicle, and there's a soul that lives inside the story? You with me? So story is the vehicle, and there's a soul, there's a life form that lives inside that story. And now what we're doing is we're talking about sacred storytelling. So when I understand what a sacred story is, now I'm going to start inviting you. What does sacred story do? It has this life form inside of it. So just think about it. I'm going to give you an example. There's Sleeping Beauty, right? And how I work with Sleeping Beauty and tell that story is going to be very different how Mark does or Melissa does, right? You're all going to encounter different kinds of beings that are living through that similar vehicle. We can all drive a Ford truck, but how we drive it will be different, right? So similar, exact same way. So any other ideas about what is a sacred story? What defines that? They reveal something, says Bridget. They evoke emotion and widen perspective, right? So okay, there's a lot of emotion here. Mark's saying they tug on our heartstrings, right? They give a shared experience, the audience and readers, right? So now we're talking about connection. We're talking about connecting to our emotions, to our histories, to our empathy. They show us something that maybe we couldn't see before. They provide a guide. I love that, Melissa. Yeah, they can be guides. And so when I call something a sacred story, I'm calling on this language, sacred. What is sacred? But it's something that has a life form living inside of it. It has a life living inside of it. And it's not just any life. It's a life that's here to serve life. So when I hear a sacred story, yeah, I come alive in myself. I feel things. I'm not numb. I might even feel a little bit exuberant or connected. I might have more energy. I might feel inspiration. I might come to extreme, utter grief, but it's because I had the freedom and the trust to touch those parts of myself that I could experience that here. I might touch anger. It might touch all different kinds of things, but when we have a good guide, right, we know that we can come through it. Now, if we understand that's what a sacred story is, and it has all this, and it's here serving life, I just want to go to the flip side really fast and go, okay, there are zombie stories walking among us, right? And so these are clone stories, and they look like stories, they act like stories, they smell like stories. But do they leave you with more life living inside of you? Right? And to me, that's a distinction. So think about what television you're watching or what movies. I live in LA, and so we get billboarded, nonstop billboards, right? And it's like I see one horror, vengeful, violent image after another as I drive through these streets. And it gets a little crazy after a while because you're like, what are these people thinking? Like, why are they bringing to life all of these evil creatures to walk among us? And so that was why my very first question was for you. What are you in service to? Because if you're going to get in this very powerful vehicle, and we know that vehicles are powerful, right? Like if it's a Ford, it can go over mountains. If it's a body, it can go over mountains, right? And if you're going to be in charge of this vehicle, or if you're going to be in relationship to a story, and you understand that it could give life or take life, how conscious are you of the stories that you're telling and repeating about yourself, about others, about the world that we live in? And so let's just play a game. Let's see, like, who are we with these people? I want to kind of wonder too. It's like, what did that, for those who are in the cat realm, you've got the lynx, the lion came alive for you. Can you make a connection between what you're in service to and what you saw and what that symbol says to you in regards to what story are you here to tell? Or what story are you here to heal? If anyone wants to play for a moment, you can. I see a lot of typing happening, so I'll just play some music while you type, while you bring this to us. Jack says that it's a reminder of the magic inside of all of us. Okay. I kept thinking I was going to see some text come through, but I'm not, so I'm just going to keep going. But I really invite you to thread this constellation of thought in terms of what is the story that you came here to heal. So if I were to play this game, right, and I love that I had a hard time with my throat even saying this, right? Because what I saw when I said, the symbol that I saw was a big lion roaring. And I'm like, oh, okay, so let's talk about how to play with this symbol, And I invite you to play with all of this, whatever symbol that came to mind, like what is lion? What are the first associations I have with lion? And so to me it was strong, it was powerful, but there was something about the mouth and the mouth like roaring and being heard. And now I can start going back to my personal experience with lions, right? I actually got to see a lion up close in the Dominican Republic and hear the roar and how it vibrated, literally the ribs in my rib cage vibrated being so close to it. So I understand the power of voice. So it's like, oh well, this is kind of obvious to me in my way of like, if there's a story that I came to heal, it has something about the expression of voice, and I'm not going to keep going on down this one because this is kind of like a 20-minute project. You keep pulling it apart. What does this symbol mean to you? And the less you can assume that you know what it means, the more it can reveal to you what's living in your subconscious and what's living in your unconscious. And I invite you to do this because to me, this is one of those key pieces that will also help you connect the threads to what are you in service to? And if you're in service to love or community or unity or healing or all these different things, this is going to amplify your capacity. And it's going to amplify your capacity and the power of how you're using your voice. So Shelley is saying, the story is here to tell the strength, wisdom, and power in each of us. It's here to heal the parts and experience that caused us to die, shut down, or hide. I love that. And so this is a place where we're going to be playing for this next course. And I'm getting ready to teach a course called Mythos, which is this 4-week course where we get to really play with what is inside, what are the symbols that are living inside of us that are yearning to be expressed through our stories. It's kind of a weird question, right? I'm gonna take another way of speaking about this, which is what is the creation story? What is the origin story of your soul? And I feel like this is such big magic to be working in right now, because so much, when we live in a time when there is so much radical change that's happening, right? We are living in a time where perhaps more change has ever happened during a human life than it's ever happened during the span of human lives before us, right? So like our capacity to be like superstars, like superhuman and superheroes, it's like I'm sure there's no accident that we've become superhero obsessed, right? In terms of our movies, look at all the movies and our obsession with these superheroes. And there's something in there that's yearning to be expressed, that's being reflected in that way. And it's that like humans are having to step up and do things and live in ways that they've never had to live before. Maybe not exactly, those aren't our exact motifs that we want to attach our archetypal structure to. And again, what is an archetype? But it's sort of like this universal structure. I think of like an archetype as like as a universal suit. So like let's look at Wonder Woman. She's got her like awesome suit on, and we all have these capacities to put these different suits on, and it's whether or not we live in a world that provides us a space to express them, right? And this is why I love storytelling, because it gives you the avenue to express the full spectrum of what it is to be human, and throughout all the different archetypes. And so when we come to this question of what is your mythos, what are the symbols that are yearning to be lived through you, and what is the creation story of your soul? No, I'm no longer in this, and I'm going to call it a small story, the small story of someone that was born on a home in Vermont, and my parents, separated when I was 2, and then I moved around a lot, and then I fell into playwriting and went to New York City, and then I worked for Al Gore, and I produced the Green Channel, and I produced some award-winning, PSAs along the way, and then I found my way to sacred storytelling and wove together social justice, environmental justice, blah, blah. It's kind of boring when I say it like that, to be honest. It's like, but it's an expression of my human experience, right? But what I would say is that there's another story that's much bigger, that's riding behind it. It's sort of like the horses that are pulling the cart, and that is the story of the soul, and what the soul came here to learn, and what the soul came here to give, and what the soul came here to provide. And now when you start looking back behind this, Michael Meade calls this the mythic dimension. It's sort of like looking behind can't find the word. They're in the theater, the curtain, there we go. You pull back the curtain and now you're in the mythic dimension. And it's how the human world is working out, but now we're working out in the mythic dimension, and that's all symbol, archetype, metaphor. What I would say is that there's been that great rift between the human dimension and the mythic dimension. And it means that we're in a great trial and tragedy, if not, part of what could be creating some of the chaos in our world is because we don't know how to understand stories anymore. Because we don't understand that story speaks through metaphor, and it speaks through symbol. That is the language of story. They're not human. It's a soul from another place speaking to you through its language. That's the most simple way I can experience it. So now look at other times that we're in, and we'll say, okay, well, what does that mean? So now let's look at what's in the, I'm sorry, I apologize already because I'm probably going to step on somebody's toes, and I'm going to ask you to have strong toes and be with me in a field of wonder. Okay, so be with me. Can we listen to this as a field of wonderment as I come towards this political thing that's charged, that can easily bubble our emotions, right? So I'm inviting you into the space of listening and wonderment, you know. So when I listen to the QAnon stories, I listen to them through the avenue of a sacred storyteller. Okay. And as a sacred storyteller, I listen to these stories, and as a human, I'm like, wow, that story sounds crazy to me, you know, politicians doing crazy things with children and blood and blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm just gonna, obviously I haven't studied these stories, but enough. Okay, so we're saying, wow, this is a really intense thing. And it's resonating. It's resonating with a lot of people. So as a sacred storyteller, I'm saying what in this story is resonating with so many people. It's matching something, right? So when I look at this as through the lens of a sacred storyteller, I say, okay, this is a story that's speaking through symbol and metaphor. Okay. So if I take out the literal part of it and I say, oh, do I think that people in political power are creating situations where those who can't protect themselves are not protectable? Yes, that is actually a very accurate story to me that reflects what's happening in our everyday society. So as I look through this into the lens of a sacred storyteller, I say, of course, this story is true. Not because I personally I create space of wonder and belief systems of all people. Like, this is why I love storytelling. There's more than enough space for all of us, and we need all the whole story to be there. Okay, so it's like, this is where storytelling, it's like we get to be outside the field of right and wrong. I'm sharing my version of looking at this particular hot button story in our time, and how do we work with sacred storytelling as a tool to understand and help other people understand the world around them, when so many of us have lost the first language, the first lexicon, which is to understand how stories speak to us. And if you don't understand how stories speak to you, it's like talking to someone. Like, I don't speak Japanese. So someone who speaks Japanese can come and they can talk to me and they can start yelling at me, and I can feel all the upset and the fury or the whatever, but I still don't understand what they're saying to me. So I think the same way with stories. If we don't understand how to listen through symbol and metaphor, then we can't actually get the whole message. And then we're left sort of empty-handed and disconnected, and there's a massive disruption. When you listen to Indigenous people speak about a story, the first thing that they'll often say is that a story must be connected to a place. Must be connected to a place. So if your story isn't connected to a place, it is not in relationship to the earth. And so in this way, we know that we're missing one of the most key components to a myth, which is what Sean Kane brings to us, that a myth is a story that's speaking, that is the earth speaking out loud. Okay, so now when we look at this and we're saying, okay, how do we look at the myths of our time coming through symbol and metaphor? What are they connected to? Who is the storyteller that is telling them? What are they in service to? How extensive is their language? How many languages do they speak? You know, and so again, these are some of the things that we're getting to, that we are tending to in the School of Sacred Storytelling and in the courses that we're working with, is how do we understand our personal stories? How do we understand the stories of our time? And how do we understand ourselves as playing a key role in guiding us through the landscape of these stories? And that's what I feel like a sacred storyteller is. Someone said it's a guide. And I'm like, yeah, I feel like as storyteller, it is one of the most honor-filled positions one can play, because it means that you've stepped onto the path of steward, but also as elder. You are aware of the power of your language, on the spells that you can cast, and how those stories might be carried for generation upon generation upon generation upon generation. There's a story that's popping up that I'm going to tell you, and that will end our class today. And then for anyone that has questions, I say please stay, and I'll also stay on and introduce Mythos, this class that begins tomorrow, so that for those who feel inclined can get to hear it. And this story, oh, I'm just listening for it. Okay, I was not expecting to tell you the story, but I'm going to tell you the story because I asked to come through. The story came alive in Kauai. I was driving down the street. I love driving in Kauai. People are nice, and they're kind, and they wave at each other, and there's not a lot of rushing going along. And you always know when someone's just gotten off the plane when they're honking, because nobody honks in Kauai, except for the people that just got off the plane. They don't know yet. They haven't slowed down yet. And I was driving happily in Kauai one day when this honk, 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 you know it, right? Those freaking honking, like those car alarms, and it was just going off. And it's like, it's one thing to hear them in LA, right? It's another thing to hear them in Kauai. You know, it's just like, it just breaks you out of that sense of serenity that really can live there. And I started wondering, who's the person? Who is this person that created this thing that creates so much disruption and demise in my life? Like a little victim story there. Did you catch that? You know, who did this to me? And so I went and I listened. I went in for the story. I was like, tell me, what happened? What's the story? Why would someone do that? And this is the story that came alive. Once upon a time, there was this angel, and she was not just any angel. This angel had skills. I mean, mad skills. She had helped Beethoven write the Fifth Symphony. She had a little something special going with the birds. She had brought so much love to the shores of the ocean. She knew the tops of mountains and the gold that lives in their center, and how to show the very special beings how to get there and have fun in between. And in this day, in this way, she was assigned to this young boy. He had a big task, not just any task. I mean, like the biggest task. This was her last life as an angel. This was like the last grand finale, her last final gift to Earth. She was so excited. And she really liked this kid, and they grew up together. And she realized that they were going to have a big job, because while she had her task, which was what she had introduced him to, he was given this task by his parents, lawyer, doctor, all the things. He didn't want to do it, you know, but he did. He wanted to become a lawyer. He studied all that stuff. He was going to be an engineer. And she kept, you know, whispering in his ear, but he would never listen. And then one day, right after he got his PhD, he was sitting on the street with the first kind of moment to think in a very long time of just open thought without something to do. And she saw her moment, and she knew that she had to get him these very specific musical chords, but they were on a street and there was nothing around, no birds were left. And so she jumped into the first car right there, and she like honked it out on the horn, knowing how brilliant and genius and connected they were, and how he would hear the melody through the rhythm that she was playing. And he said, yes, that's it. I'm going to invent a car horn that beeps incessantly, nonstop, to remind people of what they have and what they don't have. And so that was that. She tried to get him married. He wouldn't pay attention to any of the beautiful women. She offered him jobs that would give him lots of money. He refused. But he made a lot of money off of his inventions. And he went on to invent other things too, things that stopped water, and all kinds of things. And at the end of his life, he was there, drifting between the veil of death and life. And she's lying there right next to him. And she goes, oh gosh, this life. She was really not wanting to feel like she'd wasted it, but she was wondering. And he goes, "Oh, there you are. I can see you." She goes, "You can see me?" He's like, "I've seen you my whole life." She's like, "Wait, you knew that I was here?" "Oh, I've loved you from the first day I was aware of you." She said, "Well, why didn't you listen to me?" He goes, "Oh, yeah. Creating the chords for world peace. What a mess. It would have started wars. I mean, the whole economy would have failed. Everybody would have blamed me. I would have been murdered by the time I was 35 if I'd done that. I didn't want to do that job. Someone else, give it to John Lennon. I don't want to do that." She's like, "Oh, God. What about love? Like, I introduced you to that woman. Yeah, I loved you. I didn't want to do anything that would make you leave me." And she had this moment where maybe it wasn't waste. Maybe what she thought would create peace on the world wasn't these grand notes of harmonies, but just a simple presence of being alive and awake and a love that you chose. And so I tell you that story because it's one of my favorite ways of working with stories. You take the things, the parts of life that make no sense at all in this human form, right? No sense at all. And you allow yourself to go into this other expression of working with the muses, working with the ancestors, working with the earth, speaking out loud. And a bigger story reveals itself. Something that gives you another way of living in the world. It might not take away the annoyance of that car alarm every time I hear it, but at least I can smile and say that because of that car alarm and my choice to meet it, it invited another expression of beauty into the world. And as storytellers, if we do that, if we can bring beauty into this world, it might be one of the most meaningful things we do in our lives. Because what does beauty do? It feeds the soul. And so that is our class for today. That was like galloping a great big stallion with you guys. I don't know what you inspired. We dove in and out of many different topics in the realm of sacred stories and how to meet the stories of our time and how to be alive in a really conscious way as who we are as conscious creators and sacred storytellers, and how incredibly needed this is. And I was really inspired to be a part of what I would call the healing and restoration of these times. I don't know that we need to save our planet. I think she's pretty strong and wild, and I really believe in her capacity. But I do believe as humans that I am part of a lineage that has created quite a disruption and a disturbance. And what an honor it is to be here at a time when so many of us are aware that we can bring healing and restoration. And that we can do this through this ancient technology of using words and rhythm and song and dance. And that this is like the original key of humans' role on this planet, that we sing and speak this world into becoming. And so I often ask people, what kind of world do you want to be a part of bringing in? And how do you want every expression of your language to be an example of that? Or not just an example, an actual embodiment of it. And that's what we do as storytellers. We bring those stories alive in these times so that they can continue to be here far past our own time. Story living. I love that, Mark. Yeah. So if you feel complete with our class today, this part of the part is complete. And now I'm going to do a little bit of introducing of both Mythos, which is this 4-week class, and then also the School for Sacred Storytelling and the 11 module program and how they all fit together. And so I'll be here for about 9 more minutes. And then if there's any other questions that are burgeoning, I'll stay on and you can answer them. I'm going to do a little screen share now. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, I don't know why I have to sing while doing this, but it's so much more fun. Okay, so this is Mythos. And this is a 4-week class that will really bring you straight into one of the foundational skills I feel like all sacred storytellers need is this understanding, this speaking the first language, right? The speaking the language of symbols and speaking the language of metaphors. And a lot of times we'll go back and the first stories are these creation stories, they're origin myths. And every land-based indigenous culture has these stories. And these are the stories that explain how the world works. Literally, that's what these origin stories do. And what Mythos does is it's your origin story, the origin story of your soul, and basically how you work. Okay. And if right now you're like, I don't know what my story is, you don't have to know what your story is. That's what we come in to do together. We come in and we'll do writing, we'll do storytelling. The emphasis is on telling, not on the writing, but oftentimes we use writing. We'll do story maps. We'll do all different kinds of things to make your way into this. And it's a way of also like giving a way to be in real full embodiment of the all that you are. And a lot of times our life and the world as it's structured right now doesn't create those places and ways for us to come into that greatest expression. So this is one of those places that we do that. We're meet for 4 Tuesdays, and we meet at 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's a 2-hour class. You'll never hear me talk this much again. They are highly interactive. You work with small groups. We do exercises. We get to share. You get an opportunity to have reflection. And to me, what's very, very critical in these classes that's a little bit different is that this is really designed to be a community that calls out your greatness, that is really in support of the creative process. So we don't do critique. You're not going to be pulled apart. We're going to be looking at how can we support you? How can we call out your story? How can we have fun and do this and play? And when you come into your boundaries and the things that get in the way, not the boundaries, the thing that gets in the way, I'm sorry, barrier, that like blocks your creative life force. Some people will call it, a creative block. We'll look at how do we use the creative process to work with and to massage that muscle that's gotten a little stuck and stymied so that we can liberate that creative life force that wants to go through you. And so we do all of that through the creative expression and play. So one of the things that you're going to get to do right off the bat is you'll get to start learning creation stories from around the globe. So if those of you who are knowing that you want to participate, your first assignment, I'm going to give a giveaway right now, is to learn a creation story and to be part of that experience of getting to carry an old story, but just 3 minutes, it's okay. You're going to get to find the different archetypes that are living inside of you. We're going to work through ritual and through earth-based practices, because to understand your own myth is to understand yourself in context to the relationship that you are on and to the land that you live on. We're going to work out the muscle of the mythic imagination. A lot of you guys were great. You just stepped right into it. And you're going to really get a chance to develop your unique voice and style of storytelling. And then you'll also get lots of feedback along the way. And our last class is what I call a mini storytelling festival, and you all get to tell your story there. We're also supported by 2 fantastic guest speakers, which I am so excited about. And that is Sophie Strand, who is this wild on fire young woman who's just bringing forth, her writing is so exquisite. And she's going to bring us into rewild, reroot, and retell the ecology of myths. So she's going to really talk about the ecology of myths. I'm really excited for this. And then we're going to come in with Todd Felderson, who is a playwright. He's worked with the Actors Studio. He's a director. He's a writer. And he's going to come in. He's really funny. I was on the phone with him the other day. I couldn't stop laughing. And he's going to help teach you how to break your story to reveal the treasure that's inside of it. And so that's pretty fun. those teachers are on Thursdays. So what I'll say about all these classes is that coming live is the best. And if you can't, there's always recordings, and those recordings live in our Mighty Networks, and that's what's really great. And then the rest of this I'm not going to go into all the details. I will just come down. The way that it works is that for the 4 weeks and 6 live courses, it's $375. You get with that, it says 4 interactive classes, but it's actually 6. You'll also get a Psychic Silence guidebook, which is a tool to help you kind of understand what is living in your mind so that you can understand how to work with it creatively. We'll do guided meditations and creativity practices at the beginning of every class. And it's not a Facebook group. Gosh, I thought this was updated, sorry. But it's a Mighty Networks group. So we now have our own private world where you get to share your stories and receive reflection that's like outside of the Borg. And then you also get permanent access to all the classes. You can register for Mythos, and if you want, you can also add on a soul story. That's a private session with me where I do a mystic form of storytelling that and it's like a divination. It's a reading, and it will bring you right into that language of symbol and metaphor, and we'll get in there really deep about how you see that. So it's a private session that will focus on that. Or if you're someone that says, hey, I actually really want to focus on my storytelling technique and style, I do also one-on-one coaching. We'll have an opportunity to have group coaching in all these classes. And one of the benefits of coming to this is that we now, with our membership, you get 1 free month membership for Mighty Networks, which gives you access to weekly creative writing classes, a book reading club, and I have open office hours for twice a month where anyone can come and have 20 minutes, and it's done in a community open field, so you can ask anything. And if you do choose to get private sessions at the time of your registration, you get 20% off. And then you also can do other things. I'm going to put this in our chat box just so that you have it. And then for those of you who are saying, wow, I'm really into the School for Sacred Storytelling, you can actually go ahead and register for the next course, which is Eros, which goes into our 2nd chakra. And I'm going to go into that. I'm going to come out of this for a second and give you the link to this so that you can have the link, because emails they end up in all different kinds of, I always feel like it's a miracle when people get an email these days, because between Google taking it and putting it in spam or drafts or all those kinds of places. Any questions about that so far? Oops, I see, Beth, you're speaking, but you're on mute. I don't know if you're speaking to me. You might not be.
Mostly talking to myself.
Okay, great. I love that. I am going to, oops.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can you, I'd like to do, I don't know if this is the right place to be saying this, but I'd like to do the class and have the one-on-one. Can I divide the payment into 2?
What a great question. Yes, you can. So when you click on the button, it'll take you to a page and you can determine how many payments you do it in.
Great.
So when you do one payment, it's a straight up fee. When you do multiple payments, and this is such a bummer because it's like if you're doing multiple payments, it's most likely because you don't have the cash to do the one payment, but we get charged a lot on the back end. So I end up having to pay PayPal fees and admin fees. So when you do multiple payments, we have to add 6%, which is lower than the 12% that most other people pay. I tried to get to it so just our expenses were covered and we weren't profiting off of that. But that's part of the realities of online businessing. Any other questions? Okay. I'm going to show you guys the other beautiful thing that's coming alive. And Mark, you haven't seen this yet. I'm going to take you on a tour behind the scenes to the new world of School for Sacred Storytelling. I'm going to give you guys this link. You won't get this link anywhere else. You won't see it. So if you do want to look at it, just know that you are can look at this and think, oh, I'm going to a construction zone. And not all the doors have been built yet. Okay, so if you say, "Oh, the buttons don't work, the site doesn't work," no, it's just that the guys are still working on it, and I'm just doing a little sneak behind the scenes where you can see what's going on. So this is what came alive in my world during COVID, which was a complete, comprehensive 11-module program that works through you as a sacred storyteller to really help you meet the times that we're in. If anything, I would say these are like tools for the evolution. Because what I understand about storytelling is that it teaches you everything that you need to know about how to be a great human. And through the experience of telling stories, you have an opportunity to learn not only how to come alive in your creative life force and wake up all of your eros, and how it comes through all different parts of your life, you actually have an opportunity to have an influence on the world and the times that you are in. So this is all the pretty parts. That's the video where I talk all about it. Here we are. You're getting to see all this. Here are our guest teachers. I am so excited about these guys. We have 30 people from around the globe. This is it felt like quite an accomplishment, I have to tell you. Very diverse perspectives. Very diverse approaches. From poets to singers to people who are going to help you access your body, your embodiment, to people who are going to help you work with your voice, to people who are going to help you work with your consciousness and what stories are stuck in your body. And this is where I was talking before. We've got this soul, and it comes in this vehicle. Let's call it a Ford. I don't know why I'm stuck on the Ford truck today. It's like I hope that that the engine is flowing. You've got good oil. You've got good lube. You're taking your ghee. And you're also doing your stretches. And you've got a good mechanic. And so this is like going to the mechanic, to make sure that your vehicle is like running tip top so that your mind, your body, and your soul can come into radical alchemical expression through your tongue. And this is where I feel like storytelling is the ultimate expression of a unified mind, body, and soul. It's where we're actually speaking what we're aligned with. And so I feel like that is no small task, So in some ways, I was telling somebody about this, and they're like, "Leah, it's kind of like a mystery school." And I'm like, "It is, but I just don't call it that." But look, I just did. But that is, we're really exploring the mysteries of what it is to be human. And so the way that the program works is that we start at the root chakra. So you'll see on the left-hand side, we go through all the different chakras in your body. These are personal discovery modules where we're really looking at where are the stories that you've lived thus far, or through your ancestors or through your history. Where do they live? What are the stories that have to be told? What are the stories that are stuck? How can we use that creative process to unstuck it, liberate that creative life force so that we get to come out and tell the story? So we just did our first root chakra one, which was all about sanctuary. And now we're coming out to tell our personal story, which is mythos. So if you're saying, "Oh my God, I'm late," it's okay. You're right on time. And the reason why I say that is because it's a wheel, as you can kind of tell, that goes around and around and around. And I'm going to be doing because we didn't get to launch the page in the time that we thought, because it was such an undertaking, we're going to redo the first course as a 6-day. These are normally 6-week courses, but we're going to do a 6-week creative intensive in January. So you can easily come in and just like pop in and not miss anything at the beginning. But what I'll say is that while they're all designed to fit together, they can all individually, you can take them all individually. So the way that it works is we come in, we do a 6-week sanctuary course, and then we take a 2-week break because we need that rest and restoration time to integrate. And we come out and we do a 4-week storytelling skills course. And so that's what Mythos is. It's a storytelling skills course. We really get to work on your storytelling skills specifically. Each class focuses on different skills, so they build on each other. Then we'll take a winter holiday break, and we'll come back and we'll come in for Eros. That's that sacral chakra. We're looking at the relationship between creativity and sexuality, sexual identity, and how they're all married together. And so we'll be working on that. And then we've got some amazing guest teachers to support that wonderment and expression. We take 2 weeks off again, and we come out to tell our wisdom stories. And that wisdom story, that's that great thing where you might have learned something along the way that you really wished you hadn't had to. It's a little bit of suffering was involved. We recontextualize it into initiation. And now we are in the space of having a giveaway, a story where we're no longer the same person that we were when we told them. We've changed, we've let some things go, and we've discovered some parts of us we didn't even know were there. Our capacity expanded. And sometimes this is where I feel like storytelling is so important, because if we don't have this ritual of storytelling, then we can get stuck missing that evolutionary step of not being the same person that experience happened to. And it's through telling the story is where the integration and the shift and that's it. Here we go. Here's the word. The transformation can occur. Okay. But I say that because what I understand about change is we want to do it slowly. When we change too quickly is when trauma happens. But when we do it slowly, then it's like we integrate, change, and then we own it. So we're not faking it till we're making it. We're practicing. So I'm not going to go through all of this because you guys got the point. All these classes are designed. You'll express your relationship to love of self, love of other. You'll express your relationship to power, your core power and purpose. Speak your spark, all about speaking your passion in the world, the things that you really care about and protect. And then we get to tell our vision stories. We're planting our vision for the future. And then all along the way, you'll learn these different skills and techniques. These are a greater, you can go wander around here and dive even deeper into all these different courses. This is what this is. But the next one I'll say is Eros, which is that class. These are the buttons that won't work quite yet, so don't be upset if they're not, because you're just in the back scene. And then we come into what does this really include as a comprehensive program. So you have these 5 unique 6-week, discovery modules where you have these 5 guest teachers that really support you in that. And we come out, we have story skill building classes where you have people specifically working on your embodiment, your techniques. We'll do 5 storytelling ceremonies over the course of 19 months. And you're like, whoa, 19 months. Did you just blow your mind a little bit? And a lot of people go, whoa, that's really long. And here's what I'll tell you. We did this same curriculum last year, minus the story ceremonies. It can be done in 12 months. But what you miss is time to integrate. You miss that time to just have a little bit of wonder and rest and not feel like you're on a marathon. And if there's any story that I feel like I'm here to be a part of bringing healing to, is a story that we have to race to save the planet. I think we have to slow to integrate and bring restoration. It's a slowing down that might actually give us a chance. So that's why I actually slowed down the program, was to be a real embodiment of healing one of those big stories, so we would actually have time and we weren't always trying to catch our breath. These story ceremonies is one of the unique things that I bring into this world of sacred storytelling, which is this relationship of the marriage of ritual, ceremony, and story. And we'll work with these stories, and you'll have an opportunity to really dive into it outside of the mental space, but in the ceremonial space. You've got, about the guest teachers. What you don't know about yet is that every class you get your own peer group if you want it. If you want to have a little extra juice and meet with 4 people outside of class. And I think of this as the sewing. In class, we come and we poke holes in all the different things. And then in your small groups, you get to come and weave it in, and you get to come into practice, and you get to really witness each other. You get a group that holds you accountable, and you get to have fun, because that's what we're here for, is to bring more fun and joy and play into our life and more creativity. And then you also get that members only online community. It's who is this? If this course is designed for you, I'm not going to go into this. Really, what I'll say is if it's in your bones, if I just started speaking something in your bones and you started getting excited and your feet started tingling, you got a big smile and you got excited, that's it. This is for you. It's you don't need any experience. This is designed to give you the experience. And I'm not going to go through the rest of this. It's all very clear. The one thing that I'll say to you is that, you have a choice. You can sign up one module at a time and just say, hey, I'm just going to try that out. Or if there's a part of you that is feeling the power of commitment. And what I understand about commitment and what it is to say yes to a whole program is that it holds you. The commitment holds you, so that you have this moment, you have the spaciousness to really hit your boundaries. I use that word boundaries again. I'm really into boundaries these days, but your barriers, and not believe them. So if you're feeling stuck, it's really easy to be like, this isn't for me, I'm out of here. But when you make a commitment to something, you commit to your life, you commit to your life force expression, you commit to your voice, you commit to understanding how you want to live and love through the stories that you tell, and you commit to becoming the best version of yourself while learning how to do that. And you have this community that's committed to you. And I feel like that's one of the greatest gifts that this program offers, is this kind of accountability and this place where we really, our whole design is to look for your greatness and to keep tapping on it and calling it out. So Mark has been with us for a while. I don't know, Mark, do you want to say anything about your experience in these courses?
It's funny that you must have felt that, because I was just reflecting upon the number of years that I've journeyed with you, and why I typed in their story living, how that's the work with you is so, and those others in the different gatherings that we've done, has really led me to this place of story living, of looking at life through story, and how that affects them, the story seeds that are within you, and how you nurture them, depending on where you want to give your focus and attention to. So I've always appreciated doing this with you, and that's why I'm back.
Yay. Mark often brings us these beautiful illustrations of the stories. It's such a fun part.
Actually, you know what? This one, that came from our class.
That's great.
Yeah.
And Shauna, I know that you were just in Sanctuary. I don't know if you want to pop in and say anything. I don't know if you're right there or not. Possibilities there.
Thank you. Sanctuary was amazing. It's a type of course that gets you grounded and present in your own life and in your environment. It really, it looks at, you look internally within yourself, and you look internally externally in your atmosphere of the room that you create in and your living space. The exercises and the partnerships and the stories in that particular course were just amazing and very, again, present, grounded, centering. Very much a root chakra.
Thank you. Yeah, Sanctuary is it's a wild class. We'll be doing it in January. And it looks at how you live in your physical space as a manifestation of how you live in your psychic space. And so it's a little like we Marie Kondo your space, while we also use this book around the Guide to Psychic Silence, where we can see, okay, what's living in here. And then we work with rituals and come out with a story to tell. It's really fun. So in terms of payment, if any of you guys have those kinds of questions and how tuition works, is that if you say like, wow, I want the whole program, I'm all in, I want to be held by that commitment in that container, then you can do that and you get a reduced price. And then if you say, oh, payment plan is going to be my way, then we can do a payment plan for you. And then you can always add on private sessions with me. And if you're also at this place in your career where you're like, you know what, the story thing isn't for me, but working one-on-one is, then I do have a few slots right now for the new year for people who want to work one-on-one. So there you go. That's a mouthful. Are there any questions that are here?
I'm waiting for somebody else to ask a question, but
Okay.
I just have to ask you, is Laurel, did you want to ask a question? You're muted. So Sophie, you've invited Sophie to participate, Strand. And when I asked you if you knew of her, you didn't know of her yet. And so that happened very quickly.
Yeah, maybe you turned her on to me. Could
Yeah,
have been. Thank you.
Well, and the crazy, because as soon as I started reading her stuff, I was like, oh, I would love to hear her and Leah together. And now this is happening. It's like, how
You
cool.
inspired it. Totally.
Wonderful. I'm
Thank
looking
you.
forward to that. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Have you actually, that was my question, is have you actually spent time with her one-on-one?
We've talked on Zoom.
Yeah.
Because I do interviews with everybody in advance, and yeah.
And I would imagine you got a sense of her pretty darn quick.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
she's lovely. I'm really excited for that class.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for organizing that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I will see you tomorrow then.
Okay, I look forward to it. All right, everybody. I'm going to say farewell unless there's any other questions, and keep an eye out for your inbox. And as they say in Hawaii, ahui ho. Did you have a question, Diana, or are you waving?
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm waving too.
Okay.
Is the website to see about the whole program?
Mhm.
That's the DEV, School for Sacred Storytelling.
Yeah.
Okay, and that would like include what we're gonna do tomorrow starting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about me creating a piece of art for you.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure how to integrate that into my payment.
Yeah. I'm just going to turn off the recording because I'm getting into a